Hi there, Michael here. There's a new feature in the Dolby Atmos renderer that even the most dedicated users don't know about, and Dolby hasn't even documented it in their official manual. A user on our Discord server just pointed me to this. The Dolby Atmos renderer now has direct integration with head tracking from Apple AirPods. This could fundamentally change how you monitor your spatial audio mixes, giving you that real-world listening experience right in your digital audio workstation. Yet somehow it's flying completely under the radar. This discovery shows two things. First, if you want to stay on top of all things Dolby Atmos and immersive audio, you need to join our Discord community. I'll leave an invite link in the description below. This is exactly the kind of discovery our community makes regularly. And second, seriously Dolby, you build game-changing features and then don't make that public in any meaningful way? If you want people to use your technology, you need to properly communicate what's new. It's almost as if you don't want people to know about everything the renderer supports. So today we are going to look into how the Dolby Atmos renderer can utilize head tracking information from Apple devices like the AirPods, and yes, that includes Beats headphones such as the Beats Studio Pro or the Beats Powerbeats Pro 2. We're going to check out how to set everything up, how it actually works, and whether it genuinely improves your Atmos workflow or if it's just a neat party trick. So let's dive in. The news that the Dolby Atmos renderer now supports Apple AirPods for head tracking came in a support article on the professional support pages by Dolby. I'm going to leave a link to that support article in the description below, and that support article describes pretty much everything that you need to know, where to download all the things that you need, and how to set everything up. Now this obviously only works for Mac operating systems, and I believe you actually need an Apple Silicon Mac. I'm not entirely sure. If you know more about that, leave a comment in the comment section. It also requires you to set the Dolby Atmos renderer to headphone-only mode, and you need the latest version of the Dolby Atmos renderer, at least that's what's said in the support article. That version came out, I believe, in July, so if you don't have the latest version, just download that. And then the support article says that the head tracking works for the Apple devices. These would be the Apple AirPods Pro 2. That's the ones that I'm going to use. It's also going to work for the regular AirPods, the latest ones, version 3 and version 4. I usually don't use those, I just have them in case I want to make a video just like this one. It obviously also works for the Apple AirPods Max, but only if you use them in Bluetooth mode, which is a little bit of a bummer, but that has to do with the fact that the Apple AirPods Max only communicate head tracking information if they're actually in Bluetooth mode. Now in testing I found out that this also works for the Beats headphones, it works for the Powerbeats Pro 2, these are the ones that people like a lot. I'm not quite sure why, it's not a big fan, but what can you do? It also works for the older Beats earphones, I think they're called Beats Pros. They have not done a revision of those yet, at least not that I know, but kind of if you have those work too. And then obviously also for the Beats Studio headphones, which is really nice. So these are the Studio Pro 2. I got used to them, to be perfectly honest. They're not exactly my kind of headphone, but kind of after a while you actually kind of start to like them. So if you have those work too. So in essence, it works with any headphone or earphone that has the Apple H1 or H2 chip included, and that is almost the entire Apple headphones line and almost the entire Beats headphones line. Now setup is really simple. All you need to do is download the file that is linked at the support article and put that into the folder that holds all the plugins for head tracking. I've done that in a previous video for the Subwoofer head tracker. This was the first head tracker that the Dolby Atmos renderer officially supported. And if you're interested in how to set it up with the Subwoofer head tracker, I'm actually going to leave a link to that video in the description below. And for the Apple AirPods head tracking capabilities, you pretty much need to do the same thing. So just download that file, put it in your folder, and you're ready to go. So let's see how that actually works in practice, and the way I'm going to do that is with a very simple Ableton project that pretty much only holds one audio file, and I've routed that audio file into the Dolby Atmos renderer as objects 11 and 12, and we're going to move that around in order to test how the localization sounds with the Apple AirPods. Now for this test I'm going to use the Apple AirPods Pro 2, but as I said before, you can use almost any Apple headphone or Beats headphone and they should just work. So let's put them on. Now as soon as I put them on, you will actually see that the head in the Dolby Atmos renderer is already moving. It's currently dislocated a little, so let me just recenter that. And we're going to go through the settings in order to make that work. If you've set up everything correctly and you put on your AirPods and you still don't see the head move in the Dolby Atmos renderer, which actually happens sometimes, then one thing that I would recommend is just take the AirPods off, put them back into the case and put them on again. The Dolby Atmos renderer seems to be a little bit squeezy in terms of the order in which you connect everything. So sometimes I think it just happens that the renderer doesn't know that the AirPods are connected, and even though you have them connected. So just put them back into the case and put them on again and you should be fine. Now, before we play the audio, let's just check out the settings. And in the Dolby Atmos renderer, what you need to do is you need to go into the headphone settings. You need to set the headphone render mode to binaural. You need to turn on head tracking. You need to select the Apple AirPods head tracker. That should actually pop up as soon as you put the dynamic link library into its correct location. And then you need to turn on headphone only mode, otherwise the head tracking won't work. And that should actually be pretty much everything. You also need to select the output device, and that would usually be your AirPods. Now, in my particular case, because I'm recording what I'm hearing through the AirPods through a separate device, I actually have a special loopback device. And all this really does is it separates the audio into two streams, one that I'm recording and one that actually goes into my AirPods. In your case, you would probably just kind of put in the AirPods here. And that's pretty much everything that you need to do. Just make sure that the AirPods are actually connected to the Mac. And that's something that you see here in the settings. So just make sure that they are connected, and then everything should work just fine. So let's play some music. And the track that I'm going to use here is a track that I've created with the help of artificial intelligence. It's a track that I created for an experimental music video that you can actually watch. I'm going to leave a link in the description below, and that music video got actually some international recognition at film festivals that specialize on AI art. And I'm using that simply because there are no issues with copyright, so I can simply play that and everything is fine. So let's just play that, and I've currently positioned that just in the left and right speakers, so it's just going to come out as a regular stereo file. And one final comment, obviously, if you're watching this, you need to listen to this on headphones, otherwise you're not going to have the correct impressions. So let's just press play. So let me just turn that into full screen mode so that we see better how we're going to actually move that head. Now it's actually a little bit better if we fold left and right speaker into one. That gives us a better impression what we're actually going to do. So if we move that around, I now have that on the right side, and you should hear exactly the same thing that I'm hearing. Or if I move that back, it's now in the back. We can move it up. The localization behind me is actually pretty good. I really have the feeling that this thing is behind me. And we obviously can always see how everything looks in the Dolby Atmos renderer. If you ever need to reset the location or the position of the head, we can do that by clicking here on the reset button. But this has actually very little drift. And one thing that you might notice is that in contrast to the regular Apple head tracking, this actually stays stable. So if I'm starting to look into one particular direction and I'm just going to keep looking in that direction, the head actually stays that way. If you are using Apple AirPods head tracking on an Apple device, for example, it kind of, after some time, it actually will think that you have changed the position of the playing device or the device that you use in order to play the audio, and then will recenter everything. This is not happening here, it's not recentering. So I can actually look in that direction and kind of check out how everything sounds if I look in that direction, and it's going to stay that way. There is surprisingly little drift here. I usually have issues with drift, but this is not the case with this tracking device. So this is actually really nice. Now, one thing I should point out is that there is a little bit of a latency, and that comes with the way Dolby has implemented that. There are different ways on how you can actually implement the head tracking or integrate head tracking into your software. And in order to make sure that we have the possibility to have a fixed direction, they used an approach that introduces a little bit more latency. I had a discussion with Fiedler Audio recently where they explained it to me, but essentially that's it's sort of a trade-off really. But that means that there's a little bit of latency, so if you move the heads too fast, it's going to take some time to catch up. But that's actually not really a problem as long as you are not really moving too fast. So if you are just moving naturally, it actually sounds perfect. So let me just put that to the front again. Maybe kind of. And that works actually really nice. So one final thing that I want to mention is that you actually don't need to monitor, and let me just turn off the audio for a second for that. The one thing that I wanted to mention is that you actually don't need to choose the AirPods as your output device in the Dolby Atmos renderer. As long as the AirPods are connected to your Mac as the main audio device, it will actually take the head tracking information. So what you can do, for example, is, so once again, I have the AirPods connected here. I can switch that over to something else. So in the preferences for the Dolby Atmos renderer, I can, for example, select a different output device. So let me just choose one here. Well, actually, let's choose the Sphere device for no particular reason, really. And that will still kind of allow me to head track, but at the same time, I'm now outputting the audio to a different device. Now, why is this really interesting? This is interesting because what it allows you to do is it allows you to use the AirPods as a head tracking device for another headphone. And I've actually shown that in a video where I used the AirPods and I mounted them to my regular studio headphones. And then these AirPods function as head trackers for your studio headphones, and you can use it that way, and it actually works quite well. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to leave a link in the video description below. So what's my final verdict? Well, Dolby really did a great job implementing that, to be perfectly honest. It works incredibly well. So if you're working with the Dolby Atmos renderer and you have Apple AirPods or any other Apple headphones or Beats headphones lying around, it doesn't cost you anything. Just download that file, put it in there and test it out for yourself. And you might be surprised how well that actually works and how well that integrates into your workflow. Obviously, you're restricted or limited to the type of headphones that Apple and Beats produces. And that might not be everybody's cup of tea. But, kind of for testing, for monitoring, excellent. Really excellent. Give it a try. Well, that's everything for today. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments or join our free Discord server. The invite link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on all things Dolby Atmos and immersive audio. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.